You see the title, Nick Diaz calls brother Nate stuck up. The full hour-long, unreleased Baja Rehab interview with Nick Diaz has finally been released. Now, Nick talks about a lot of things in here. It's not just all about, him resenting his brother Nate. There's a lot more to this. Nick talks about his experiences with drug addicts throughout his life, falling into a bit of a depression after his loss to Anderson Silva due to a lot of ongoing battles, losing a girlfriend, getting suspended for 5 years, getting fined. So there are several things Nick addresses. Nick addresses from his perspective what ended him up in Baja Rehab in the first place. What else does he talk about? Oh, what his plans are once he gets out of rehab, right? All these types of things. How he's been able to stay off drugs in the past, being sober for 3 years. I think it was around that time that he fought Anderson Silva. He was sober for 3 years. So there's a lot that Nick talks about in this interview. I figure we should watch it in its entirety. But if you just want to see my Instagram real quick, you will see, a lot of these clips. Nick Diaz on if fame and money changed him. I feel like that's more my brother. He's kind of stuck up. Nick Diaz on hanging around heroin addicts after his loss to Anderson Silva. I wasn't partaking in those types of drugs, but I was around it. Is he not taking accountability? Is he in denial? Kind of an odd fucking quote, hanging around heroin addicts after his loss to Anderson Silva. He says, I wasn't partaking in those types of drugs, but I was around it. Very interesting. Then we got this one, Nick Diaz on if he will surround himself with different people after his release from Baja Rehab. I'm not a bad judge of character, and I don't plan on surrounding myself with the wrong type of people, and I don't think I have in the past. Here's also a quote from this little 3-minute segment that I posted. Nick goes, if you walk out of your front door, you could get hit by a car. Interviewer says, you could. Nick goes, but that doesn't mean don't go outside. Interviewer goes, but it also means it's probably safer not to run around in the middle of the street. Nick goes, sure. Okay, so, if you guys didn't get what I just read out there, Nick basically said, just because I could fall back into drug addiction, hanging out with drug addicts, doesn't mean don't do it. What the fuck? Yes, it does mean don't fucking do it. Yes, it does mean that. Yes, it does mean that. And then there's actually one more that I need to post on my phone right now. Let me post it up before we get this thing going. Oh, how could I forget? Nick Diaz says he sees himself becoming UFC champion after his release from rehab. I think it's easy money. It's not like before. People are going to see a brand new me. So Nick thinks, Khamzat Chimaev is easy money for him. Let's get into the Nick Diaz unreleased video. We locked in for about an hour on this. I will be making pauses when necessary.
Thanks for coming out here. I'm here with Nick Diaz. Wanted to get you out here to talk about a little bit about your life and kind of what it was like for you. And obviously I'm here with Baja Rehab. Kind of get your story and get to let other people know a little bit about kind of what you've been through and where you're at now.
I was born and raised in Stockton, California. And I guess let's just get right to it, right? Like I was in and out of hotels and stuff like that. Hotels. And
growing up?
Yeah.
Like with your family or?
Yeah, I just, you know what I mean? We get kicked out of one house and then in one hotel, one motel, next one. And it was like, it was Lodi or Stockton, and it's like, I don't know offhand how many grammar schools I went to. It was like, I went to Washington, and I was at Hammer. Yeah, I went to George Washington, like elementary, first grade, and then second grade I was at Live Oak, and then third grade I was at Davis School, and then from Davis School I went to Vinewood Elementary. So like five elementary schools until I think that's elementary, right? Elementary schools until sixth grade, and then I was at Murata Middle School, and once I got to Murata Middle School, I was kind of more settled down, living in Murata, California, which is a really nice place to live. I got really lucky, and it was like in like a nicer neighborhood.
Why were you guys moving so much?
My mom was a full-time waitress, and my dad wasn't really around. And yeah, it was just a lot of, you know what I mean, us getting left at home alone a lot, and I was a lot older. Not a lot older, but enough to where it made a big difference.
When I was a kid, like I would go outside and go play in the neighborhood, but we didn't move around a lot. I mean, did you have experiences like that, or?
So when I was 4 years old, and my mom was at work, I lived like a block away from the restaurant, Lion's Restaurant, and I snuck out of the window at 4 years old and walked to my mom's restaurant, which is like, I mean, maybe a half a mile away, which is kind of far for a 4-year-old to be walking on the street. And then I was sitting there peering in the windows and stuff like that until one of the cooks saw me and then brought me in and was like, "Hey, your kid, you know, your kids are out here." And so she took me home, and then my dad was like, "What the fuck?" and put me to bed, and then shut the door. And then I went to go to the window again and open it, and then before I got through, he put his hand on top of the window and shut it when I was trying to get out the second time. So I was making my rounds pretty early, and started getting in trouble at school pretty early.
Like after elementary, after sixth grade, or
I think I got my first fight with a kid when I was in like first grade.
how'd that go down?
Not good. I was just kind of I wasn't a troublemaker, but I didn't really sit still, and I was, you know, just didn't really pay attention in class, and then they put me in special ed classes and stuff like that, and I just really always felt like school was just not helping me. You know, I was pretty smart. I was a pretty
Homie was in special ed classes. That's kind of crazy, but I don't know if it's like legit special ed, because I think what he's talking about is more so like he didn't do his homework and he was failing all of his classes. So they put him in more of an expedited learning process. I don't think it's real special ed. I think it's like ESL. Like he got put in like the same classes as like the people who speak English as their second language. I think that's what he got put into. Because I know some kids in high school, they also got put into like quote unquote special ed classes, but it's not really special ed. It's just because they were bad at school and like they didn't do their homework and they were failing classes. And then they get put in this like more expedited learning process. So just explaining, I don't know if Nick is like a full on special ed or not, but I don't think he is.
smart kid. Like whenever it was time to do like a big assignment, I would do it, and then they'd be like, "Wow, how did you do this?" You know, and like. But I wouldn't I wouldn't turn in any of my homework or do anything else that I was supposed to do. And
see, I didn't do my homework or do anything else that I was supposed to do, which is why he got put into that class. Not because he's a retard. So I don't know. That would be my take on it. ES3505 saying Nick might be super low IQ. Dylan said, I got put in classes with 2 teachers and they counted as special ed. Andrew laughing. No, yeah, I think it's not special ed, what Nick was in. But maybe they did call it that.
I was pretty athletic. I was on the swim team, which was weird for a kid like me that was like getting into trouble a lot. All the kids that swim on the swim team, they're pretty good kids, you know. They're like,
Yeah. Well, you got to maintain a certain GPA, right?
in high school, but I didn't swim in high school.
Okay.
I swam until high school, and then after high school, I started swimming again. But so I was trying to wrestle and play football when I was in high school, and I didn't have the attendance, and I got into some fights in high school. So I was pretty much trying to switch high schools in the middle of high school. It was because the wrestling coach was like, come and wrestle for our school. And it was like before in middle school, grammar school, I had like an interdistrict agreement to go to one. It was always a problem, like where you live, you know, you have to go to this school if you live here, you know. And,
Oh yeah, like the districts.
yeah, the districts. Yeah. So like they wouldn't let me wrestle for Lodi. Coach thought he was going to get me on the team, but it never did. But I started doing jiu-jitsu right away, and then
How old were you exactly, like when you started jiu-jitsu?
I was 15. But I was 13 and 14. I was watching the UFC. Maybe younger than that. I was renting VHS UFCs and watching UFC fighting and stuff like that. You know, and smoking weed and you know, I just hang around with a bunch of kids. Like they did a bunch of drugs and that's just kind of what we did. And then we'd go and shoulder tap people, get them to buy us alcohol. Try to get some girls drunk. You know, it was just
Normal teenage
it was
stuff.
just, you know what I mean? I'm getting in gang fights and people getting jumped into gangs and shit. Like, we're gonna jump you in. Like, what? You better fight back too. It was like, but then I started training jiu-jitsu when I was 16, and then that didn't really like. That's all I did, you know. And I was beating pro fighters. I was beating them on the mats. I was beating them in the gym, and I was.
Like right away?
Yeah, grown fighters, you know, was competing in jiu-jitsu, and then I would get my friends that were a little older to drive me all the way to Walnut Creek or Pleasant Hill to train with Caesar Gracie, and then I started getting like a blue belt, purple belt, brown belt. You know, I think I was purple belt by the time I was 23. I was a purple belt. And then by the time I was 24, I think I was a black belt. So that's the right age, I think, to get your black belt. Like when you're
8 years to get his black belt from 16 to 24.
you know, in your early 20s. Like,
What about your friends? Like, I know, like for me, like my friends that I went to school with, high school with, all of that. Like, obviously, I'm not in contact with any of them anymore, and I think some of it was because of the choices I made. But are you still friends with people from like back then? Like, do you stay in contact with?
yeah, well, I mean, I had the same group of friends. We had a whole like 20 of us or something. We're all friends, live in Murata, and I had a pretty good group of friends. I mean, a lot of them did good or went to college, moved away, and then some of them stayed and started fucking up. And but I didn't really maintain friendships, like, you know what I mean, for a long time. Like I was busy. I was fighting 3 to 5 fights a year for 17 years. All I used to think about was weight. How much do I weigh? What am I going to eat? After a while, you realize there's more to life. And then, that's when I started getting into some trouble again. I was bringing some old friends back in the picture, and that really fucked things up. But I cared about them, though. I was like, well, I didn't know they were fucked up. I didn't even know what that was. You know, I was clueless. Even though I'd been around it my whole life, I didn't know, like, you know what I mean? I just didn't know anything about drugs or a little bit about alcohol, but I didn't drink alcohol my whole 20s. I drank when I was, you know what I mean, until I was 16, 17, 18. I was drinking a little bit, but when I hit like 20, I stopped drinking. Before, you know, I would get into some bars. By the time I actually was old enough to be in a bar, I wasn't drinking. I was just too many fights. I was fighting in Japan. Too much going on. Yeah, and then, you know, when I used to drink, it would always it never ended well. I was always like getting nauseous and fucking. I wouldn't get drunk. You know what I mean? I didn't know what it was like to get like super drunk and like, you know what I mean, like where you can't walk straight. I would always get nauseous before I would get to that point, and I was like, "Fuck, I'll see you guys later."
So, Nick having adverse reactions to alcohol from an early age, causing him to actually stop drinking before he was actually 21 years old. Just kind of goes to show, substances and Nick, they don't go together. Not even alcohol. Weed might be a different story, but, I'm kind of on the camp of just saying homie needs to be completely 100% sober. This whole moderation thing, I don't think that's going to work for Nick.
And it would ruin my night. I'd be with some, supposed to be like trying to hook up with some girl or something like that, and then I'd end up in the bathroom instead. And it was just fucking ruined. And for hours, like, you know what I mean? Like alcohol poisoning, like off of like, drinking more than if I would drink like a 40 or something, and I would drink, if I started on the second 40, I was in for trouble. You know what I mean? It was like before I would even get drunk, I would get like I'd have a reaction. And so I stopped drinking, and I ended up holding like, these long relationships.
So things were better. Things were better without the substance.
Without
the alcohol.
drinking, yeah, I much better. I never thought I would go back to drinking.
It's kind of a weird thing how like it's like such a part of everyone's life. I mean, for me even too, like
I couldn't
drinking
stand it though. Like being around, I would still go to parties and stuff like that, but I couldn't stand it. I'd smoke weed. I smoked a lot of weed, but I couldn't stand being around my friends when they're, when they were drunk. It was fun because they would. But it was always just like everyone would get trashed. They were doing those keg stands, you know what I mean? Lifting people up over the keg, and they were fucking drinking it upside down. And yeah, I must have done one. I must have tried that once or twice, and then it wasn't fun anymore. And people were getting stabbed or shot. And it,
where? Doing cake stands?
Dude, no, like at these parties like that, there was
in Stockton.
big fight every time there was a party. There was a big fight, and that was the thing. It was like if there was going to be a big fight at a party, I was going to be involved. And it was probably me or one of my friends, and so I was just waiting for it to go down. I mean, as soon as it would go down, boom, boom. It was like at someone's house or some backyard or some, some like bonfire party or something like.
Sounds like some good times. I'm not even gonna lie. That sounds like some good times. No wonder why Nick always brings it back up. Those are probably Nick's favorite days. Showing up to these fucking backyard parties, waiting for something to pop off, getting active. Team Haney style. You feel me? But honestly, that sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I was there too. I wish I was there, Nick.
That and that shit was all just crazy. And then until my friend got shot, and once my friend got shot, I was like,
that doesn't sound fun. Minus the friend getting shot part.
It's not like I just stopped going to parties, but we stopped going to parties. It wasn't even like I was too busy to be at those parties anyways. But
okay, but before he gets into what he's gonna say, basically he's saying his friend got shot. He's gonna say his friend got shot 4 times in the chest, and essentially, this is going to be Nick's first experience with someone close to him getting addicted to heroin, essentially. Then Nick is going to go into, the Anderson Silva loss and how he basically was battling things like the suspension, like a breakup, like the loss, and he stopped caring. So he brought up his friend who got shot in the chest 4 times. He saw that he got hooked on heroin. Nick's going to go on to say, I saw that for the first time, and that was my first epiphany or my first realization that this can happen to people. I didn't know that this could happen to people, off of a surgery, getting hooked on opioids. Then he brings up the Anderson Silva story, and he's like, rewind it just a little bit. After he realized what happened to his friend getting hooked on heroin, he made a promise to himself that he would never get like that. Nick, right? But then he goes on to bring up the Anderson Silva loss, and then he starts saying how, he did promise himself he would never get like that, but he got pretty close because he was hanging out with people who were drug addicts as well. Now, essentially, in my opinion here, Nick walks his foot right up to the line to admit that he did get like his friend. You know, his friend from childhood that got shot in the chest 4 times. He walks right up to the line, but then he hits him with the, I was kicking it with them, but I wasn't doing it with them. Right? So that's where everyone's calling out Nick and being like, bro, no accountability. You're in denial. You can't even admit it. But he's getting very close to, and then he just doesn't fucking commit. Right? It's like Nick's walking up to the edge of the diving board. He's about to jump. And he doesn't commit. He turns around and walks back down the ladder. So I'm explaining it to you because he's kind of tying in 2 stages of his life very quickly here, and it might go over some of your guys' heads, but he's tying in the childhood story with his friend getting shot in the chest 4 times, getting hooked on heroin, making a promise to himself that he won't get hooked on heroin, then, you know, going down that slippery slope after he lost to Anderson Silva, broke up with his girlfriend, got suspended for 5 years, started hanging out with heroin addicts, essentially. So, understand what he's about to talk about. Let's listen.
But I was, and then one of my best friends got shot, and yeah, that guy, I can't help but talk about him. You know, he got shot, and then he was in the hospital. He got shot 4 times in the chest with a 44. I don't know how you lived through that. The doctor was like, "Yeah, I would have died. I don't know how you survived." And then, yeah, and then so they started putting him on all these drugs and stuff like that.
Is he still alive?
Sooner or later, yeah, he's still alive. And then he ended up on, you know, doing like some heroin and shit like that. And then he was fucked up. And so I went back and hung out with this guy. I was like, damn, I didn't know what it was like. I thought you were gonna be normal like before. I didn't even know that what being fucked up was all about. I didn't understand it, you know. And I told myself I was never gonna get like that, and I never got like that. And luckily, I didn't have anything to do with those type of drugs.
I told myself I was never going to get like that, and I never got like that. Luckily, I never had anything to do with those types of drugs. So, see what I mean? Let's just hear it one more time from Nick's mouth. But he's going to go on to talk about Anderson Silva right after this.
And I never got. And I told myself I was never going to get like that, and I never got like that. And luckily, I didn't have anything to do with those type of drugs.
He says he never got like that. I'm here to tell you he did get like that. That's why he ended up in rehab. I don't know why he doesn't want to admit it. That's for Nick to answer. I won't even speculate. But one of my questions is, it's probably a little bit of both. Both are probably true. But it's like, is Nick being genuine and open here, or is he just going through the motions? I think he's doing both. He's trying his best to be genuine and open, but on the parts where he doesn't want to be genuine and open, he's going through the motions. He's telling the guy what he wants to hear, but he's not going to give him everything. Meaning, he's not going to admit that he ever had a problem with hardcore drugs. And he doesn't once. In this whole interview, he doesn't do it one time. He speaks about quitting drugs, you know, but never fully admits that he was hooked.
But just being around those type of drugs really caused me a big problem. You know what I mean? Like,
and I don't mean to keep pausing it, but do you see what I mean? He goes, but just being around those types of drugs caused me a big problem. It's like he keeps walking right up to that diving board, then walking back, then walking up to the diving board, then walking back. You know what I'm saying? We got a Space Kid saying, holy denial. I mean, low key. 80 says, Nick doesn't appear to have CTE. He speaks normally and sounds better than he has for years. Being off drugs, he is normal. He is more normal. He's definitely more normal when he's off drugs. Twilight says, trying to say weed got him there 100%. I mean, he's insinuating that weed got him into rehab, and that's just not true.
Caused me a big problem. And I was going through it. I went through a breakup. I lost this fight with Anderson Silva. Tested positive for weed. They suspended me for 5 years. I was going through a breakup, and I didn't really give a fuck about being around those type of drugs. You know, I wasn't partaking in those type of drugs, but I was around it. And
well, you didn't get in trouble for any other drug. I mean, you got in trouble for the weed. And
again, man, I didn't give a fuck about being around any of those drugs. I didn't do it, but I was around it.
And we talked a little bit about that before. but almost like you were.
I did though. I did get in trouble for those type of drugs because I mean, like,
Says he got in trouble for those types of drugs, but he was never on them.
you know what I mean. It was like the people that were all of a sudden around were fucking. They were, you know, either selling drugs or bringing drugs around, and then fucking next thing you know, people were cruising by my house with fucking guns and shit. You know what I mean? People were pulling guns out again, and I'm like, this is fucked up. I gotta leave town. I'm like, this is like when I was a kid and my friend got shot. I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And so I got the fuck out of there. But
Can we back up just a little bit? Like right after like high school and you're kind of getting into your career and getting busy, you're obviously you start gaining some fame, right? And now you're obviously transitioning from a young man or even a kid that was going through a bunch of schools, and then you're kind of getting out of high school, maybe had some problems with that, but now you kind of have a purpose, and fame came with that.
yeah,
What was that like?
So like, well, it came with that, but it was kind of something that like when I went home and I wanted to like show my friends, hey, like, you know what I mean, like there's more to life. Check it out. I got fucking fan base. There's people everywhere. I met so many nice people, good people, and proper type of people. And then when I went home, it just, you know, it was just right back to being around trash, you know, all over again. And yeah, and so I would leave town and come back. It was just a vicious cycle, leaving town and coming back. But
How did you deal with?
there's no being famous like in a small town. It's like everybody knows you and everybody recognizes you, but you don't want to sit around that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, oh yeah, it was fun seeing you the first day, but now you're here again, and I'm like, yeah, I live here. Give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta live here too. So it was like, you start staying in the house, and you're like, fuck, I gotta leave town. And so it was hard to live at home and be at home. That kind of thing was hard.
What did you?
I don't know, much to say about that whole not wanting to stay in his hometown thing, but it's kind of telling. He doesn't like the attention he gets and got all paranoid to the point where he's staying in his house too much. I don't know. Nick, I guess that speaks to Nick's unsocial behaviors in a way. But I figure that follows him everywhere he goes.
Do to like if you'd come back home and then get stressed or you get frustrated with your situation, how did you deal with that? Was it
I'd
just
call
go
my
back
agent and I'd be like, hey, get me out of here, and then fucking send me a car or book me a flight, and I'd leave. And I'd leave, and then my house would get robbed or something like that, and it was just
By Martin Sano, allegedly.
it was crazy. And my brother started these big fights with Conor McGregor, and it was just the UFC and MMA blew up like to where it was like hard to walk around. You know what I mean? Like there's a fucking fan base everywhere. So once I'd find like somewhere to stay, I would stay. You know what I mean? Like,
Honestly, I just got to say, it seems like Nick had the issue with it. It's getting to a point where I just got to say it. Nick had an issue with the fan base and stuff, but it's what comes with the territory. I think Nick got to fix his perspective on things. He's looking at the negative when that's a huge positive. You guys worked so hard for all the fans to love you guys and admire you guys. You guys were shadow banned for the UFC by how long? Held down by the man for how long? Right? You finally beat the system, so to speak. You finally beat the system. All the fans love you. You beat the game. You guys don't even need to be champions to be recognized as the GOATs. And, Nick finds the small problem in it. And he runs from it. I'm going to just point it out that, I think there's an issue with all that. Like, for example, he brings up how, Nate started the Conor fight and things started getting crazy. Why didn't you want to be in the mix? Why didn't you want to be a part of all those camps with your brother and, be 100% in the mix with the whole team? Moving around like soldiers. Could it be because You know, big bro doesn't really want to be around little bro who's kind of, you know, while he's surpassing him. Maybe. Maybe.
Like somewhere that I wanted to be. That it wasn't like when I was younger. I'd just go do whatever I wanted, go out whenever I wanted, and yeah, that's kind of tough, you know.
Do you think the money and the celebrity changed kind of who you were as a person ever? Or have you always kind of tried to keep the same moral compass and stay the same?
Yeah, I think I've been the same since day one. I'm always going to be the same. You know, I like talking to people. I like taking pictures with fans. I don't like to be that guy that everybody's like, oh, that fucking guy's a dick, you know, like. I met him and he's a dick, you know. Like, I feel like that's more my brother. He's kind of stuck up, but
There it is. There it is. The viral clip. Nick Diaz saying, you know, he's a people person. He not like his brother Nate, who's stuck up. In response to the question, did money and fame change you? Nick says, no, money and fame didn't change me, but it changed my brother. Crazy work, man. Crazy work. He skipped town because his brother was getting too popular with Conor McGregor, if I can just say that, right? He skipped town because his brother was getting too much notoriety from Conor McGregor fights, right? And, you know, when asked if money and fame changed him, no, but it changed my brother Nate. He's the one who's stuck up. I mean, just to keep it a buck with you guys, I always thought that the person who was more like edgy and you got to tread more carefully with is Mr. Nick Diaz right here. I just have to say it. I have to say it. We all know the viral clip of Ariel Helwani asking him, are you excited for this fight? And he was just going off like, no, I'm not fucking excited. How dare you ask me a question like that? Like, I'm not fucking excited. I'm anxious. And it was a raw answer and it was real. It was Nick being Nick. But, you know, Nick not showing up to press conferences. You know, Nick's got a whole track history of kind of being like, you know, against the system, so to speak. So I always thought Nate was the more friendly one. I wouldn't use the word stuck up for either of them, but I just thought that Nick was more not friendly, if I could say that. I always thought Nick was less social, less friendly. I always thought Nate was more social, more friendly, more of a jokester, right? Nick, he kind of like, he also jokes around, but I always saw Nate as the more happy-go-lucky brother. Call me crazy. But why does he say this about him? And just to go back a few seconds again, Nate is stuck up, right? Nick isn't. Money and fame changed Nate. Money and fame didn't change Nick. Nick left Stockton because Nate was getting too famous with the Conor McGregor fights. The thumbnail and the caption of this live stream, he resents Nate's success. Question mark. All right. All right.
but I've always been better at dealing with people. You know what I mean? Like I teach the class, big classes, big seminars, lots of.
And Nick is, I think Nick's right about that. He does seem to do more of the coaching. So, you know, he's speaking through his lens. And now that's not the only, you know, judgment of how social you are is how you coach people. But Nick is like isolating that one thing. And he's like, I'm more sociable. I'm less stuck up because I can coach large seminars and Nate can't, you know, but it's not that black and white. It's a lot more of a colorful conversation than just like who can teach classes. Oh, you can't teach classes, you're stuck up. Oh, you can't teach classes, you're not stuck up. It's a lot more, you know, it's a lot more of a colorful situation than that. But I'm just explaining Nick's side as to why he thinks that.
People.
You like teaching and working with people?
Yes and no. I don't like getting stuck in teaching in my own school. You know what I mean? Because you have to stay there. It's like You know, so traveling around and doing some seminars is fun, but then you kind of want to go back there and train there, but it's like you don't want to take attention from the instructors, and like you don't want to like crowd the gym. You don't want to be like get all this attention. That's my problem. Is like I would try to go back to a small town and go back to like you know, and it was just like, okay, you're here, we're tired of you, and it's like great. Now I just got nowhere to go.
I just can't. I mean, I don't mean to keep pausing it, but it's just like, Nick, you know, even this coaching thing, it's like, yeah, coaching's cool. I like coaching, but I don't like having my own school. I don't like being locked into any specific place for too long. Do you guys see the trend here? It's a lot of this like, woe is me. It's a lot of woe is me. Even how he ended the sentence. He just said something along the lines of like, he just sees, let me put it like this. Nick seems to be seeing the negative in almost everything. And I didn't mean to come on here and bash Nick, but honestly, he's finding the negative in too many things. Just listen to what he said like 10 seconds prior.
Try to go back to a small town and go back to like you know, and it was just like, okay, you're here, we're tired of you, and it's like great. Now I just got nowhere to go.
Okay, great. So we're tired of you now. Great. Now I got nowhere to go. But bro, you left in the first place. You left in the first place. But now you got nowhere to go. Like, bro, you don't want to stay there anyway, but now you don't got nowhere to go. Honestly, I don't get it. All I can do is point these things out to you. But literally, like, he doesn't want to stay there, right? But then he's got nowhere to go. Which one is it, bro? Which one is it? I'm sure everyone in Stockton would love for you to stay there and run a school and for you to bring in money and be financially stable, you know, giving back to the community. The real issue, Nick, is do you want that for yourself, bro? Can you handle all that for yourself? Can you handle the, you know, consistent coaching? Can you handle the attention going out in public? I mean, homie, you live in Vegas. You're getting more attention than you ever would in Stockton. You're in the fight capital, Vegas. Doing, you know, showing up to events, doing poster signings, showing up to Extreme Couture. It's all the same thing as if you were in Stockton, homie. Same attention you're getting from Sean Strickland when you go to Extreme Couture is the same attention you're getting when you go to Stockton and train at the academy there. Same attention you get when you go to the store in Las Vegas is the same attention you get when you go to the store in Stockton.
So that's kind of hard, you know. It's like almost like you got to have your own gym, you know, or you got to make a plan with people or something. It's not like it used to be, you know. It was fun when it wasn't popular. It was like training was easy. Now it's like you have girls and kids, they do it, you know what I mean, and people want to keep a gym, like run a business, you know what I mean, and there's a way to do that, and I don't think it favors fighters, you know what I mean, and but the gym doesn't make their money off of fighters either. They make their money off of students and stuff like that. So it's like it's tough being a fighter and you want to train at a new gym, and then it's weird too. I always had a problem with it because it was like, okay, well, you train at our gym, so stay here and train at our gym, you know what I mean, like. You don't, you know, we fly one flag, you know, it's like
you're trapped.
Everybody gets into fights over it. Like, you know, you train at this gym and then you come over here and you train at this gym. It's like, pick one. And it's just small town shit, you know. It's kind of makes it hard. Training somewhere or going somewhere, being famous fucking sucks.
I mean, we were talking about that earlier, like.
My goodness gracious. The amount of positive things that Nick can just like make seem negative is crazy. Even speaking to, he gave another reason. I wasn't even going to pause it, but I just have to. Even 1 minute ago, he gives an example, another example as to why he doesn't like coaching gyms or running a gym. And he literally says, because the sport became more popular. It was better running a gym when the sport wasn't as popular. Okay, so the sport becoming popular, negative thing for Nick, right? Ruins his coaching because the sport's popular now. Now he got soccer moms wanting to drop endless fucking dollars on their kids, right? But there's a problem with that for Nick. He doesn't like that. The sport's too popular. Now we got soccer moms throwing good money after bad on their kids who will never be fucking pro fighters. You know what that's called, Nick? That's called a fucking lick, homie. That's called a fucking lick. That's what almost every jiu-jitsu instructor aspires to have. Soccer moms paying good money after bad for their kids who will never be fucking fighters. Like, that's the easiest money you could ever make, Nick, but there's a problem with that for you. So the sport becoming more popular results in soccer moms putting their kids into his gym. He doesn't like it, you know, and I just paused it right after Nick said, being famous sucks. And I get it. I get it. There's cons to being famous, but there's also pros, you know? And he, you know, I'm pretty sure he soaks up a lot of those pros of being famous. As you guys have seen, as he's doing this little world tour around Las Vegas following his release from rehab. But being famous sucks. The sport getting more popular sucks. Nate getting the Conor fight sucks. You know, fans recognizing him in Stockton sucks.
Before that,
It's fun to go and bring some new people and introduce everybody, or you know what I mean, like they introduce you. Hey, have you met so and so? And then after that, it's over. You got to go find it elsewhere. You know.
I mean, what we were talking about earlier, I was thinking about like me hiding because I'm sober, and what it was like for me, and me trying to kind of, you know, keep people, you know, where I wanted them in a sort, so that I could kind of do what I wanted, as far as substance, or live how I wanted to live, and what that looked like was kind of, you know, maybe lying to my ex about stuff. But you were saying earlier, like when you got they had the issue with the UFC, how it was posted on the tower in New York, and like that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's no hiding. There's no hiding. Like
no.
we're just at different levels, obviously.
It makes you like, you know what I mean. They're like, okay, well, you know what I mean. Like, oh, you got a drug problem, or you fucking, and I'm like, you know, I never looked at it.
At that point, did you feel like you had? I mean, that was a while ago.
It was a big problem. It's a big problem, but like.
But do you feel like you had a drug problem at that point?
I definitely did.
Okay.
I definitely did. But, you know, it was like, instead of acknowledging that like I had a drug problem or trying to fix it like it was a problem, or acknowledging that it was a problem, I fucking changed the problem so that it wasn't a problem. Like, like we got that drug to be legalized.
It is legal.
Yeah, and part
It's
of it
very legal in California, and
He's literally saying him smoking weed was a problem. Like, what the fuck? No, that ain't no problem, Nick. You smoking weed ain't no fucking problem, homie. It's all that other shit you were doing. But yes, you did get the weed legalized.
And
Many
then,
states.
like, whether a big part of it was because of me or something like that or not, it sure did feel like it, because, you know, everybody kind of like signed a petition and shit like that, and was like, you know.
The rule change was 100,000% because of you, Mr. Nick Diaz. You were the pioneer in that. You deserve all the credit.
This is wrong. And then they started, you know, they suddenly started changing the whole fucking thing, like, you know. And they had my name was in a big part of it, so it was just.
you feel like you got dealt a bad hand with that.
I mean, it was just the negativity. I didn't at the time. It didn't affect me, you know. I was like, okay, but then time goes by, and like, you get this fucking dark cloud, and everywhere you go, it just follows you, and yeah. And my brother never had to deal with that. I don't understand, like.
He can't help himself. He cannot help himself. And my brother never had to deal with that. And my brother never had to deal with that.
He got the benefits without having the bad part, you know. It's with that. Yeah, and my brother never had to deal with that. I don't understand. Like, he got the benefits without having the bad part. You know.
If anyone's ever been bitter about something, and I'm sure we've all been bitter and couldn't help ourselves but to complain, but that's exactly what Nick just did right there. The topic was pretty much over with, right? But he had to squeeze it in. Because he's so bitter about it. He just had to squeeze in, you know, that Nate received all the benefits, but he didn't have to go through the bullshit he went through. But yeah, Nate and all the other fighters, bro. It's not just Nate. Like, Nate ain't this bad guy. He ain't this bad guy, bro. He always had your back, Nick. He always had your fucking back, bro. And here you are, just like, I know you're twisting things in your head, thinking, you know, in your downtime, like, that's so funny. That's so ironic, isn't it? And now I'm stuck in here, my brother not bailing me out. Bro. Just admit you had a drug problem and you belonged in there.
I ended up taking all the hard shots for everybody with that one.
I mean, you kind of did. I mean,
And to Miata Boy's point, saying maybe Miata Boy says Jacob Nick is speaking facts, he's just wording it wrong. He's wording a lot of things wrong and speaking facts at the same time. I can kind of agree with you, even right here, right? He speaks facts, but he also words a lot wrong. Like, listen to what he just said after he threw shade to Nate for the second time.
With that one, taking all the, you know, I ended up taking all the hard shots for everybody with that one.
So, you know, I ended up taking all the hard shots for everybody with that one. You know, that is facts. You did, bro. You did take the brunt of it, but that's not Nate's fault. You know, and you shouldn't be bitter towards Nate because of what you had to go through and that Nate didn't have to go through it. Like, I get it, but come on, bro. And just to speak on it now, just to speak on the whole brother thing now, I might as well just get it off my chest. Okay. Anyone who got brothers in the chat, it's got to be the brother versus brother dynamic, okay? Got to be brother versus brother. And especially if you guys are close in age, just like these two are, this is typical, bro. This is typical. And honestly, I don't really blame them. You know, I can understand what's going on here. You know, Nick is the big brother. Nick has always been the best fighter, right? Nick is the one who showed Nate a better life, a better way, and got him into fighting. If you guys don't know the story, Nate got in a street fight in high school. I believe it was in high school. And, you know, I think he might have won it, but he didn't look impressive, right? It was a shit fight. Nick said, "You better come to the gym with me tomorrow. You better come to the gym with me tomorrow if you looked like that in your street fight in high school." And that's all she wrote, right? Nate followed Nick to the gym after that viral street fight in high school. And, you know, it's been like that ever since. Off to the races. Both brothers made it to the UFC. But Nick was the one who showed Nate a better way. Nate was the one who was fucking off his life. Nick was the one who found the financial opportunity for them. Right? You're following. Okay. But then Nate surpassed him. And Nick's life, not only, it didn't remain the same, Nick's life really fucking plummeted. It really dropped. Meanwhile, Nate's life is going like this. So now you got like this situation where Nick always viewed himself as the man, as the pillar, and rightfully so, because he was and he has been. But Nick started to fall off after the suspension, after the breakup with his girlfriend, after the loss to Anderson Silva. He started to fall off, right? He no longer was this, so to speak, this respectful character because of everything he was going through. But Nate was. Nate had all the money. Nate was actively fighting. Nate was becoming the biggest star in the game, fighting Conor McGregor. And do you see how this could cause resentment? Not even to say Nick's wrong, right? I can understand where Nick's coming from with that. It's probably really tough to fucking navigate, to be honest with you. You know, being the leader, being in that leadership role. They call Nick the general. It was Nick Diaz Academy before it was Nate Diaz Academy. The only reason why it became Nate Diaz Academy is because Nick essentially fucked it off or let it get fucked off. So all these things, you know, What Nick sees in Nate is what he could have been, what he used to be. And I think that drives him crazy. And I'm saying I understand it. That's probably very difficult to navigate. You know, he sees Nate, all the money, biggest star in the game, got the gym, right? He's back home with his mom and dad in Stockton, right? He got the family, he got the wife, he got the kids. And then you got Nick over here. But Nick wasn't always the lesser brother. He's the big brother. He showed Nate this way, and Nate surpassed him. I completely understand where Nick's coming from with all this. Does it make it right? No, it doesn't. And he needs to learn how to navigate it better. You know, because Nate doesn't deserve blame. And actually, Nate would give you anything you want, bro, because Nate appreciates everything you've done for him and his life. You know, and giving him the opportunity to become who he became. So I know we're speaking about the whole brothers beefing thing. That had to be said. I had to get that off my chest because I got siblings too. And I got a brother close in age. And you know what I mean? If I was less mature, right? Or if he was less mature, we could be beefing. We could be beefing. But we don't be beefing. You feel me? We let that shit kind of like slide by. So also me and my brother, our fucking personal lives and our financials and all that stuff, they don't get broadcasted to the public, right? It doesn't get broadcasted all over, you know, media and these news outlets. So we can keep our problems more private. For Nick and Nate, you know, whatever's going on is right in their face all the time.
I mean, you kind of did. I mean, and I think they've changed some things since then.
Yeah, they did. They changed some things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of did.
The hard shots for everybody with that one.
I mean, you kind of did. I mean, and I think they've changed some things since then.
Yeah, they did. They changed some things.
Mm-hmm. What are you most, I mean, given everything you've been through, what are you most proud of, like, in your career, but not only that, like, as a man, as like a human being, is like, if you look, I mean, you've had some time to reflect, right? You've got, you know, you're into your second year of sobriety. You know, you've been stone cold sober for a long time, and you've had a lot of time to reflect on, you know, decisions in life and all of that. Like, there's got to be some stuff that, you know, you're proud of.
I mean, looking at like my career as an athlete, as like a world-class athlete, you know what I mean? Like, as like a triathlete, I think I take more pride in that, because none of the other fighters in the sport or in the world, none of them have done like what I've done. They don't even know about it. You know, like, I've done so many races, like, I've done more races than pro triathletes. So it's like, I would just race and race. Like, I spent my money from fighting on racing, and I would race. I raced half Ironman, Olympic distance, international distance, full Ironman, you know, and, you know, I would do these big events. Like,
What do you get out of running like that? Like, what does that do for you?
just freedom.
Like, you just feel good?
Free, you know, and it's like, instead of being trapped in the gym all day long and a boxing ring or just running constantly, you start to, you know, go to the pool and swim and get out on a bike for 30 miles and or ride with a group. I started mountain biking, so like mountain biking kind of took over, and I started doing mountain bike off-road triathlons, and it's like a rougher crowd, and I advanced like way further in that than I did doing regular triathlons, because it's a smaller crowd, and not everybody can mountain bike, and then not everybody that can swim can mountain bike, or bike can swim, and the people that do that can't run. So if you can do all three, then it makes it a lot of fun. And I was able to do all three Least of all running, but like the thing is because I would gain weight. So it's like, but I had to lose weight to fight, but I would gain weight from fighting because there's so many different categories of weight classes that you're putting up with it, like in the gym, and you just get stronger and bigger, and then you want to run to lose the weight. So running has always been like a tool to lose weight. Like two things get you in shape: running and sparring. So like, you do those to get your weight down.
Why do they do that? Why does everybody want to lose weight? Like, why does everybody go down instead of like?
Because if
You don't want to fight up, you want to fight down. Is that what it is?
like if you fight me at 175 pounds, I'm fucking huge. I'm really big for that weight. Other fighters. Yeah, you can't fight like at the weight that you weigh. You have to get your weight down if you're gonna fight. Otherwise, you're just at a disadvantage. And so yeah, you run. If you don't run, I don't know how people do it without running. I know there's fighters that don't run. I don't know how they lose weight. Because I'll to get into race shape, I gotta run, and to get into fight shape, I gotta run, and to make weight, I gotta run. I don't know how anybody does it without running. But there's been a lot of pro fighters they don't run, and yeah. So since I had to run so much, I just took up doing triathlon, and I just enjoyed doing.
Is that harder on your body, you think, than fighting, or is it all hard? Or?
It's all the same, depending on the intensity that you put on or put in. Like what goes up must come down. So if you go hard the day before, then you're gonna have to like make up for it in active recovery, and there's learning how to train in zones, and without training in zones, it's like being blindfolded. You know what I mean? So before you learn how to train in specific zones and stuff like that, it's really hard. And I'm like, I can't imagine learning how to do that. I never would have if I didn't start doing triathlon and trying to improve my times and doing longer distances. And so other fighters to this day, they're not doing that. I would recommend training in zones and learning how to do that. Maybe get a heart rate monitor and figure it out, like through a heart rate monitor before you kind of like figure it. Once you understand all that, you don't need all this equipment.
I mean, obviously you've been trained. I mean, you've been trained. I mean, you've had a good career. You've been trained by, probably the best people that there are, and a ton. I mean, do you think you'll be training people in the future?
I wouldn't say that, but I fought the best people that there are.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, training people. It's not really like something that I want to do. Train people, you know what I mean? Like, I used to think I'd always be a teacher or something like that, and it's not something that I want to do, but I do it though. If I'm gonna go train, then I'm gonna probably be the one teaching. You know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, well, what do you think?
Damn, Nick was geed up in Baja Rehab is crazy. Low-key dope. Nick in the gi at Baja Rehab. Nick coaching in Baja Rehab right here. Honestly, Nick gives this place a bad rap. But I mean, from some of these photos, like, look at them giving him all these opportunities to, like, exercise his skill sets in rehab. If that makes sense to you guys. They're trying to like reassociate him with his hobbies and the better parts of his life, which is MMA and the UFC. So, they're like, all right, come coach. Come put on the gi. I mean, it seems like, Baja Rehab, they did their best with him. Just based off these photos. I know they're just photos, but I figured I'd share that opinion.
Probably be the one teaching, you know what I mean? Because it's like, hey, well, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, well, I say we do it like this. You know what I mean? And so, and then we're going to try it. So a big portion of me training is going to be teaching. And or I don't teach, and then you know what I mean? Everybody kind of figures it out the hard way, and they're like, "Wow, how'd you do that?" And then I do teach. So one way or another, like, you're gonna learn something from me, one way or another.
You're into your career. There's some substance abuse stuff going on. It's starting to have like there's some negative side effects from it. I mean, is there a point where you were like, I mean, I know for me, like, I had a point where it's like, man, I know this is bad for me. I know this isn't going good. I see the direction I'm going, but by that time, it seemed like it was almost too late. And I continued through that vicious cycle for a while. I mean, was there a time for you where you had
see,
like,
I
they
always
call it like a moment of clarity, like, oh, I have this moment of clarity. I've realized this, but
Well, I can't say I ever had one of those because I always had a fight, you know, and then I always had to get to work, and that would pull me out. So yeah, I've never had a moment of clarity with alcohol or substance abuse, but I have had a fight, or I have had like a class to teach or something like that. Luckily, so I would dig myself up out of a hole. And
what about a time like you couldn't show up, or like you weren't able to, or like did you? I mean,
sure, but I can't blame that on like substance abuse or alcohol. I wasn't available, you know. But I've never missed anything like that I was supposed to be at. I've never, like, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Sure.
You know, so I'm not that type of guy to miss out on something that I've had planned.
Well, I know for me, like, at birthday parties, there was, you know, a job interview. There was stuff that was important for me to show up to.
I've missed funerals, and I've missed I've missed tons of funerals, but like that was for my own. Like, I can't blame that on anything except for that. You know, I had my own stuff going on. You know, I mean, I guess I don't think substance abuse or alcohol helped. That's for sure.
Well, it's not a health food, yeah.
But you know, at the same time, like, I don't have any regrets. Like, I just don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't emotionally available to show up to certain funerals. I've already been to enough. I mean, and like, both my grandparents are gone, and I didn't go to either one of their funerals. I wasn't happy about it, but I also didn't get invited. So it's not like I haven't had a lot of supporters and a lot of friends, like, realistically. Sure, I've got a lot of fans and I've got a lot of supporters and stuff like that, but I don't see it, you know. I never recognized it because I don't see it. It's just kind of on the outside. And yeah, I've had a pretty intense schedule my whole adult life.
Well, no, I mean, knowing that, how do you?
I mean, I don't know when Nick is looking back on, but bro hasn't fought since 2014. Since 2015, bro hasn't fought since Anderson Silva. I just figured I'd mention that. I see Twilight's dropping that in the chat. Bro fought very little toward the end, literally years between fights. What is he talking about? Yeah. I don't know. I guess he's going further back when he asked about, because the interviewer is asking him if there were times where he couldn't show up to things because of the struggles going on in his life. And again, he's like, well, I didn't show up to things because, not because of the struggles, but because I had fights going on. I had my own personal stuff going on, but it wasn't because I was out kicking it with heroin addicts or anything like that. And I mean, I think it is because of that. Anything he missed after the Anderson Silva fight is because he was kicking it with drug addicts, not because he had a fight coming up.
How do you know?
I know he fought Robbie in 2022. That's not my point, though. That's not my point at all. Since he fought Silva in 2014 or 2015, The only fight he's had since then is fucking Robbie Lawler, and that was 7 years later. Now we're in the Big 26. You know what I mean? It's been like 11 years since he fought Silva. So I don't know what time period he's referring to here, but it is worth mentioning. Like, homie hasn't had shit going on for like 10 years.
I mean, I'm sitting here with, a little over a year, 100% sober, getting ready to move on with your life and move on to the next step. How is it that you're able to judge, like, who's going to be good and who's going to be healthy for you and who's not going to be healthy from you and who's trying to, like, gain from you and who's trying to actually be there for you, right? Because there's a lot to that. I mean, if someone's actually trying to be there for you and you're paranoid because, I don't know who this person is, or like, that's got to, how like, from what you've learned and where your head's at, like, how do you find these people?
I just based on, like, financial income and stuff like that.
What do you mean?
So this is the golden question. This is the greatest question of the interview, in my opinion, because this is what we're talking about. This is what we've been talking about for going on about, what, 2 to 3 weeks now? Who is Nick going to surround himself with once he leaves rehab? How does he decipher who's good to spend time with, who's not good to spend time with? Well, as it would turn out, Nick would go right back to the same people he was hanging out with before he got into rehab. And not only would he go back to hang out with them and Kayla and Martin Sano, but he would marry Kayla immediately. Instantly. Okay? As soon as he checked out of the sober living in San Diego after his release from Baja Rehab in Mexico, he went straight to Vegas, eloped to Vegas with Martin and Kayla, married Kayla. So, homie's asking him, once you get out of here, how do you make these decisions and hang out with the right people? Because you're saying after the Anderson Silva fight, you were just kicking it with drug addicts and you didn't care. Now, you say you weren't doing drugs, but bottom line, you were kicking it with these people and you ended up in here. So how are you going to change that moving forward? This is where Nick drops the quote that I read to you guys a second ago. And he says, I'm not a bad judge of character, and I don't plan on surrounding myself with the wrong type of people, and I don't think I have in the past. And then, there's the quote. Nick says, if you walk out of your front door, you could get hit by a car. The interview goes, you could. Nick goes, but that doesn't mean don't go outside. The interviewer goes, but it also means it's probably safer to not run around in the middle of the street. And Nick goes, sure. Okay, that's what they're about to talk about right now. They're about to say this. But once again, I figured I would isolate this because I really want to hammer it in. Nick is like a rat in a box, right? Scrambling around trying to get out of this box right now. You can't get out, homie. You can't get out. You got to accept it and acknowledge what the guy is saying. But you don't want to do that because if you accept and acknowledge what he's saying, that means you're basically admitting you're not going to kick it with Martin and Kayla. So he knew the whole time in this interview, he knew the whole time. When homie asked him this question, he knew what homie was really asking him, and he knew. I'm not going to say I'm not going to kick it with Kayla and Martin because that's exactly who I plan to kick it with because they've been for me. They've been here for me while I've been in rehab, and my brother Nate hasn't. My brother Nate's been keeping my ass in here by ignoring everything and acting like he don't see it. Right? Come bail me out, Nate. So let's continue this.
Well, I mean, if you're not making any money, then you're not surrounded by the right people.
Oh, yeah. It's also crazy work how he goes, how are you going to decide who are the right people to hang out with? And he goes, based off the financials, like how much money I'm bringing in when I'm with them. Oh, my goodness gracious, bro. No character development whatsoever, just strictly financial relationships. See how well that works out for you. Basing your relationships off financials.
And if you're not surrounded by the right people, you're not making any money.
That being said, what if there's a bunch of people that are surrounded by money, but they're actively, getting loaded and drinking and stuff? I mean, is that a direction you want to? I mean, for
And this is a typical example of, you know what I mean, when you hear a woman speaking about how, oh, I want a guy with money. Then what do you respond to that woman? Usually you would say something along the lines of, well, do you only base who you date based off finances? Who takes you out to a nice dinner? Because what if the guy takes you to Nobu on the first date, right? You're going to be all in on him because he spent the bag on you. But what if he treats you like shit? And that's what homie's basically saying. He's like, okay, so what if you make a lot of money with the people you're kicking it with? You know? What if there's this other side to them that's evil too? Money, money's the last thing that you should be judging relationships based off of. Women do it, and apparently Nick Diaz does it.
me, I'm in a position where like I figured out for myself that I can't safely moderate anymore. Like moderation's off the table for me, right? As somebody that's sober now, like I know that sometimes I can hold it together, but sometimes I can't, and it's not worth the risk for me, right? So like, do you think being in like that kind of a scene or being around certain people that maybe they do have a lot of money, maybe they do have support, but maybe they're not built like you in a certain way? How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I'm not one to judge people. I mean, and I'm not one to judge. You have the top fighters in the world are full-blown alcoholics and drug addicts, and the top athletes in the world too. And we are just talking about it. Like there's all these famous people, and you'd never know it. So it's like you just, you know what I mean? Like it's like, if you walk out your front door, you could get hit by a car. I mean, it's tough, but
You could.
yeah. But that doesn't mean don't go outside.
But it also means it's probably safer not to run around the middle of the street,
Sure.
right? So how are you gonna differentiate those people, right? And trust the process and find your own way.
He didn't, and he's not, unfortunately. He didn't, and he's not.
Well,
I mean, surely there's some people that you trust, right? There's some people that have shown up consistently and been good in your life.
no,
No.
I don't really have a lot of supporters, or people that I trust.
Well, you got a lot of fans. I mean, one fan called me and told me
Yeah.
let you go,
We should.
or didn't stick a
Yeah.
45 in my mouth.
Oh no. Yeah.
I mean, there's been some strange phone calls that I've gotten.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean. That's what I'm saying. But I can't go sifting through fans either. I'm not one to do that. But I mean, it's just like I'm not a bad judge of character, and I, you know what I mean. I don't plan on surrounding myself with like the wrong type of people, and I don't think I have in the past.
There it is. There it is. I'm not a bad judge of character, and I don't plan on surrounding myself with the wrong types of people, and I don't think I have in the past. Hence why it was perfectly okay for him to go right back to Kayla and Martin, because in his mind, they were never bad in the first place, right? They were never the wrong people to associate with in the first place. So, Nick can't really admit to drug use, and he can't really admit to surrounding himself with bad people, even though he already admitted it earlier by saying that he was letting drug addicts come around his inner circle after he lost to Silva because he was dealing with bullshit in his life. It's like he acknowledges it, then he doesn't want to acknowledge it. Come on, bro.
Well, sounds like no. I mean, you've had a really successful career and made a lot of really good decisions.
Yeah, like I said, just being financially and motivated in general, is
You want to get back on your feet.
is the key. Yeah.
Do you remember?
And so here's another point though about this whole financially motivated thing, because it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, homie in the red jacket presenting him the idea like, okay, what about, if you are hanging out with these people and you're bringing in good money, right? But they're not the right people to keep around you. Because Nick has been in this position before. He brings in money, but the people around him are fucking pinching off. They're pinching off the fucking money. You know, whether it be Caesar from his fight contracts, whether it be Caesar from his gym, right? Nick Diaz Academy at the time, whether it be Martin Sano stealing his bike when he's out of town, whether it be Martin Sano cracking his chick when he's in rehab, right? This is what the guy's talking about. Just because you're bringing in money, this is the same persisting problem you've always had, Nick. You've always been able to bring in money. But the reason why you're at where you're at is because the people you've kept in your circle. AD Kid's been fucking spitting it in the chat for like 10 minutes now. Okay, Nick, you have always had the ability to make money. It's that the fact that the people you let in your inner circle, they fuck it off. They be pinching it all off. You have nothing left by the time it comes around to you. That's why he's hyper fixating on, bro, do you know how to choose who to surround yourself with once you get out of here? Because who you've been surrounding yourself with for fucking decades has led you right up to here now. You're like 40 years old. And Nick's like, nah, I've never associated myself with bad people. You know, I don't think that's what got me in here. All this stuff, bro. It's like, give it up. Give it a fucking rest, bro. Give it a fucking rest. Give it a rest, bro. You've always been able to make more money. You've always had these abilities to make money off your name. It's been the people who you've been surrounding yourself with who have been fucking it all off for you. Pinching it off the top before it even comes back your way. I hope if Nick sees one segment out of my whole live stream, it's this right here, homie. It's this right here. I hope you see this clip right here. I might even have to clip it off and post it on IG just for you to see it.
Kind of the events that transpired, or how you ended up here in treatment in Mexico at Baja Rehab?
Yeah, I just had a falling out with like my current agents, and then you know what I mean. I had a falling out with some friends that I wasn't, you know what I mean. It was like, okay, this isn't a good time for us to split, you know what I mean, to part ways. And you know, I was in the middle of a big job, and so, you know what I mean, nobody saw it my way, and so I wound up here.
What's something?
Now, Nick also, he just leaves out so much stuff in that. And I mean, you would figure he does leave out a lot of stuff, because how can you give a 30-second answer as to how you got into rehab? So what does Nick say about how he ended up in rehab? You know, his manager, that was a bad situation. I think he said they parted ways or something. That shit's pretty much true. You know, aside from Cesar Gracie, I think this black dude was managing him. Forget the guy's name. But this black dude was managing him, and I don't think he was doing a good job, and Nick didn't really like what he was doing, so it seems like they parted ways. That is a contributing factor to him probably getting into rehab, right? But the other contributing factor that he mentions is, you know, I split up with some friends, and it wasn't a good time for us to part ways. Well, when he split up with some friends, who he's talking about, based off some of the stuff I've heard, right, from inside information, he split up with Kayla. He was over Kayla, and low-key probably, you know, okay, so this is how it went. I think he was low-key over Kayla, so he split up from Kayla, started separating himself, right? And he was sleeping with this other chick. I have no clue who this other chick's name is, and no, this isn't a for sure fact. I'm saying what I've heard allegedly. Okay, allegedly, Nick was sleeping with another chick after he separated from Kayla, after separating from his manager. Nick went into this downhill spiral, right? He was on drugs allegedly while he was with this chick, and I think Kayla ended up, you know, being the one who's like, look at all this shit he's getting himself into, and he's got a fight coming up with Vicente Luque. You know, we got to check him into rehab. This isn't good for him. And so that's basically the story of how he got into rehab. And then Martin Sano was kind of this middleman, to where Nick always wants to keep Martin around. You know, so Nick may have separated from Kayla, but Martin was the middleman. Nick wasn't really talking to Kayla because Nick was fucking some other chick, allegedly. So this is where Martin Sano comes in, where he was the middleman, and he's the one who actually was able to get Nick into rehab. Because like I said, Nick always likes to keep Martin around, right? Nick wouldn't have let his family check him into rehab. Nick wouldn't have let Kayla check him into rehab. He obviously didn't want the girl who he's, messing with on the side to get him checked into rehab. He likes kicking it with her. So Martin Sano was the one who drugged him and tricked him. But I just figure I'll present all that to you because the way he says it, it's like super vague. And it's like, nah, bro, like there's a lot more to that story. And I get he doesn't want to share all those details. But, they're out there, allegedly. And I figure I will share them.
You know what I mean? Nobody saw it my way, so I wound up here.
What's something that you've learned about yourself since you've been here?
About myself? I think that that I like being busy with what I do and not being restricted
Sure.
from doing what it is I do.
Do you like being sober, Nick?
I don't like, consistently being under the influence of anything, and I've really never known sobriety my whole life. Like as far as like smoking weed and drinking and being, there was one for 3 years. I was before I came here. I was fully sober, and I didn't like it.
No.
No, I didn't like it at all.
What was that like?
It was living hell.
Being sober for 3 years?
Yeah, it was worse actually than this whole year that I've spent here.
Okay, let's rewind this whole 3 years being sober and he didn't fucking like it.
Before I came here, I was fully sober, and I didn't like it. I was drinking and being, there was one for 3 years. I was before I came here. I was fully sober, and I didn't like it.
3 years before he came here, he was fully sober. I mean, who the fuck knows if that's true or not?
No.
No, I didn't like it at all.
What was that like?
It was living hell.
Being sober for 3 years?
Yeah, it was worse actually than this whole year that I've spent here.
Well, they talk about that. They say it gets worse once somebody stops the substance.
It was really bad, but this was a different time.
When was that?
It was after I fought Anderson Silva. Me and this girl parted ways, and I left town, and there was nobody to fight, so I didn't fight anybody. And it was awful. It was terrible. I was doing all these different healing. I was doing recovery. I was in borderline rehabs that I didn't even know were rehabs. I didn't know anything about drug addicts, and I didn't understand.
Why did you do it? Why did you decide to get sober for 3 years?
Because.
Like what for?
I just had like a bad, you know what I mean? Like I said, people were driving past my house with fucking loaded guns, and I was like, it scared the shit out of me. I was like, holy fuck. Either like, I thought these motherfuckers were ready to kill me, and they were. And that's facts. These motherfuckers were gonna kill me. They're like, oh, you know what I mean, showing up like, oh yeah, fucking, baby mamas at your house, motherfucker. And I'm like, no, she's not here. She was here. She was here, but she's not here anymore. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, fuck, you know what I mean? And
Not Nick fucking homie's chick. Not Nick fucking homie's chick. Homie pulls up to Nick's house asking where his girl is. Nick's like, she was here, but she not here no more. Crazy work.
And I'm telling this guy this while my friend's got a gun pointed right at his head. You know what I mean?
So that's why you got sober for 3 years?
So I'm going, yeah.
To get away from the drama?
I was like, I'm going to fucking die.
But what does sobriety have to do with that drama?
Well, I was just in a position where, I mean, it didn't have anything to do with that drama, but it definitely didn't help like being around
Sure.
around these types of people.
Sure.
And so I think that, like, you know, being sober kept me from partaking in anything that I wasn't aware of.
What was your experience being here? I mean, it's a lockdown treatment center, right, in Mexico. You've been here a while. I know you're leaving within a couple of days, maybe less, and moving on with your life. What was your experience like here?
I mean,
Or was there confusion about why you got here? Was there, you know, like epiphanies of like, oh, maybe is there gratitude of maybe this was, you know, a silver lining?
I'm grateful. I'm grateful for being here, but I'm not grateful for anybody that had anything to do with me being here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful for this facility, and I'm grateful for the people and the psychologists, and I'm grateful for the 12 steps. I'm grateful for all of these things that I did not want to fucking learn about, but I did. And I'm glad. But that's all.
Sure. Is there anyone here that impacted you or kind of caught your ear more than other people?
I think my psychologist Charlie, I think, was probably the one that helped me the most. I didn't know what the hell they had me doing here. I didn't know what I was doing here or how this place was going to help me until I met Charlie, because, you know what I mean? All I'd ever talked about and people ever talked about was psychology and psychology. I'm like, how are these psychologists going to help me? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, well, you're not talking to your psychologist. And I'm like, well, I don't have anything to talk about with the psychologist. And then I got a new psychologist. And then once we started having a conversation, then I started to feel better. But until then, it was pretty much a living hell.
Sure.
And I had a hard time, you know, trying to participate.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember there was about a 4-month period in the beginning that, I mean, it was hard to get you moving. I mean,
yeah, it's just because I learn a certain way, and it's just like, you know, it's just like being in school for me. Like I'm like, what is this? You know, it's not like I'm not understanding everything. I understand everything already. But you know what I mean? Just understanding it the way that other people do, it was definitely like an obstacle.
mm-hmm. You mentioned the 12 steps. Is that something, I mean, there's people get sober and change their life or get better or heal many ways, right? I mean, there's no monopoly on that. I mean, I did the 12 steps. That's how I got sober. Do you, amongst some other things too, I still see a psychologist to this day. And do you think that's something you're going to continue? Is it something you want to continue?
Sure, yeah, it's easy to continue now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Because there's some good people in the 12-step program. I mean,
I've been, you know, pretty bad to where I'm like, okay, I need to stop what I'm doing, and you know, I didn't need to use the 12 steps. Maybe I did without knowing it, you know, but I completely just turned my whole life around before, and I'm surprised now that I did that. You know, I don't know how I did that. Now I don't know how I did that.
well,
But
they say
now-
it's progressive, right? So it gets harder to do that over time. Like sometimes somebody can do that when they're younger, or there's other scenarios that come into play that kind of motivate. And you mentioned being able to get flown out in kind of any minute to go do this or do that and kind of escape and, you know, change lanes.
Yeah, you gotta bail.
But it gets progressively harder as time goes on.
And
I mean,
especially if you don't have any money. That's actually a big obstacle. That was one of my biggest problems before coming here. It's like I didn't have the means of transportation. I didn't have.
I mean, you've made a lot of money.
I cut my circle shorter. I was like, you know, and I didn't have anybody to call. I had nowhere to go. And so people thought it was best that I wind up here. And so I wound up here. and that's okay, you know.
Once again, speaking on how he ended up in rehab, being broke and shit like that. Yeah, the money probably kept you out of rehab for a bit too long too, to be honest. Just to keep it a buck.
I wasn't really thrilled about the fight that I had coming my way. It's not really like, it wasn't really the greatest opportunity, but I was on board with it. It just wasn't looking very good.
What do you see? What do you see for your future? What do you think you can? What do you think you can gain by staying sober, and like what's coming up here in your future? What do you want? Where do you see yourself going?
I see myself becoming world champion.
You still want to fight?
Yeah.
You want to fight again?
I see myself becoming world champion, and I think it's it's easy money. It's not like before. People are gonna see like a brand new me.
My biggest question in that segment, especially like people are gonna see a brand new me. I don't know, man. I don't know. Is this going through the motions to get out of rehab type shit? I mean, he was gonna get out regardless. Whether or not he did this interview, whether or not he told homie what he wants to hear, he was gonna get out regardless. But I just wonder, was he playing it up to him right there? It's gonna be a whole new me. Bro, you went back to the same damn situation. Whole new you with the same damn people. How's that gonna work? But, besides that, the main takeaway, homie wants to become a UFC champion. He thinks he could do it. Now that he's finally out of Mexican rehab, do I think he could become a UFC world champion? No. But I don't know. Respect to Nick. I'm not trying to fucking, have this fucking field day about him saying he could be a UFC champion. Honestly, I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about them booking him a fight in the first place. There's pros and cons. But will there be more pros or more cons? That's the conversation you got to have. He could make a bag, but at what cost? So I don't know how I feel about him fighting again, period, let alone becoming a world champion.
And
Which would be a beautiful thing, because I know you got a lot of fans, right? And like I've mentioned it, even with like a short little post, somebody mentioned that you were in treatment. I mean, the hundreds of, maybe thousands, maybe, I don't know, of people that said, hey, go get him, champ. And, we got family members that have gone through this, or I've gone through this too. And just the amount of support that you have behind you right now. I mean, not only that, but you had, you've had your company, UFC, pay for you to help you. So they believe in you, obviously. I mean, there's a lot. What I'm saying is there's a lot of momentum in your corner, right? To see you do really well, which means to me that people believe in you and people look up to you. What a lot of those fans, I'm sure, have been through very similar struggles, right? Substance abuse, alcoholism, stuff like that. I mean, is that the plan, like to lead by example?
I mean, as me being the example.
I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of times that's what I have to do, right? I have to show up. I don't feel good. I'm sober. I get uncomfortable in my skin sometimes. I get riddled with anxiety, right? I don't have any way. I'm not an athlete, right? So I can't go run a triathlon to relieve my stress, probably. I probably couldn't even make it to the end of the street. But like, I don't have the ability to consume anymore to relieve me of this stuff, the stress that I get.
For me, I mean, I just think that like I wouldn't have made it this far if I thought that there was something that could stop me, you know. That being, you know, the next guy I'm standing in front of, or any obstacle, you know, substance abuse, you know, right or wrong. I'm just very confident that, you know, I'm gonna do better every year, every day.
Well, I mean, I believe in you. I think you're gonna do great. I mean, I know you've had your challenges here. It hasn't been easy. You didn't. It wasn't like, hey, let me come down and spend a year with you guys. You know, like it wasn't on your priority list of things to do at that moment. And I mean, I personally have gotten to watch you, and I've also got to see you interact with a lot of different personalities here, right? You know, people come in here in all sorts of shapes and sizes and mindsets, and you know, not once have you been verbally abusive to anybody. Not once have you threatened anybody, and God knows you could probably, you know, hurt anybody here, but you haven't, you know, and I think that shows a lot of character about who you are as a person.
Well, thanks, Adam. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, because we've had fights here. You've seen fights here. You've seen people pop off and and get wily.
I stay out of it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do. You kind of stay in your lane. Nick, if someone here is watching, someone that is watching, probably there are going to be a few people watching, is struggling with addiction. What would you say to them?
I think if you're gonna play, you know, if you're gonna play with the devil, you need to, if you're gonna outwit the devil, then you need to be sly about this. You know, I think it needs to just be like, you know, an outright, like, just stop before, you know, you know, like without even thinking about it, you know. It shouldn't be like, you know, a back and forth argument in your head whether or not you want to stop drugs and alcohol. You should just already, you know, be on top of that before you get yourself in over your head.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you got yourself in over your head?
I don't feel that way, but
I mean, for me, I had times when I controlled it and I enjoyed it, and there was times that I was able to be even fairly successful while using, but there always inevitably came that time that I overshot the mark, and I didn't have problems every time I got messed up, but every problem I had kind of stemmed from that.
I think that close is too close. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not worth it. I mean, if you have a death wish, then, you know, if you're someone like me that lives dangerously, I mean, that's just how you live. I mean, there's nothing I can say that's going to stop you. But I mean, I definitely recommend treatment, though. You know, like I had so many friends die. You know, I lost some really close friends, and I couldn't figure out. Like, I was like, how, you know, this could have definitely saved their lives.
Do you ever feel like that you've had people that are like, hey, I wish I could have just put my arms around them and put them somewhere?
I mean, I wish I could have at least talked to them.
Sure.
You know,
it's hard to talk to somebody on drugs.
I never got the chance to. They died.
Yeah.
You know, they died, and you know, and that was close enough for me. Like my friends dying and stuff like that. I just, you know, I wanted I wanted never to be a part of like what happened to them. And yeah, so just, being close is too close, you know what I mean? And yeah, I recommend treatment for some of these people.
How do you feel about Mexico?
The weather's nice. I've known a few people that could use this place. Like I think Baja Rehab would be a good idea for some people. It's a certain type of people that I think need this place. And I know you guys said like, you know what I mean. You've had this person and that person call and you're like right away like, no, I don't think this is the right place for them. And then other people call and you're like, yeah, okay, we'll take them. So I definitely think that for some of those people, that might be the right idea.
Yeah, it's a little different here because, not everybody here or most people here had no idea they were coming to treatment, right? As opposed to in the States, right? You have to verbally, hey, I want treatment, I want help. Even if you check out in 24 hours or 8 hours or 30 minutes after you check in, like you have the right to make, that decision. And it's different. It's different here, right?
Well, I mean, it definitely makes you take your mental health and accountability. You know what I mean? Because there's just a fine line between, like, okay, I'm gonna hold it together and keep my cool, or I'm gonna start putting people in a neck crank, and until something pops. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
That's just the way that I think. You know what I mean? But
Was there times here when you were here where you were like, I need to get the
not-
fuck out of here?
Yeah, of course, but I mean, it's not. It's just that, like, I'm like, there's nothing I can do that's gonna make me look any less crazy. It's like, so I just wasn't gonna put any fuel on the fire. You know what I mean?
Did you make any friends here? Did you?
Well, yeah, of course. Like when I got here, there was a guy named Josh. You know what I mean? He knew my mom. He knew like where I came. He's like, hey, didn't your mom work at Lions Restaurant? I was like, oh fuck. And I'm like, how do you know that? And so I made friends with him right away, and then he was in and out of here pretty quick. There's a lot of people that were in and out of here, and I was kind of frustrated because I was here for an extended stay. But yeah, after you get Walton kind of grows on you. There's this older guy here named Walton, and he kind of grows on you after a while. And I tell the new people, I'm like, hey, don't pissing him off, and get him going. Then I had there's a few characters here. There was, you know what I mean? And there was some nice girls that were here in the beginning, Molly and Sunny. And so I remember if it wasn't for Molly and Sunny when I got here, I would have been pretty frustrated. But they were happy, and Anika, Molly, and Sunny were.
I will say this. It's nice to see Nick smiling in pictures. It is nice to see Nick smiling in pictures. I think it does say something about him. I've been seeing him smiling in a lot of pictures with Nate over the weekend that just surfaced. But him smiling, it is pretty telling that he's trying to appear a bit more happy. He's trying to be more happy. He wouldn't be smiling if he wasn't trying to be happy and portray out, like, show the world that he's trying. So I will say that, I know he makes questionable decisions and shit like that, and he does play the victim role a lot, and he does seem to resent his brother. But honestly, it might be something very small. But seeing these photos of Nick trying to smile, and now that he's out of rehab, he's still smiling a lot, I think that is telling, and I think it's a good thing. And I think it speaks to him trying to find his happiness, him trying to be a happier guy, and, fix his life. It just sucks. And the reason why everyone's on his ass is because, you know, he went right back into the same people's arms that he was with that got him into this mess in the first place. But, you know, you can see him smiling, man, and it is nice to see. Because, you know, also with the Diaz brothers, they're known for just being tough, right? Kind of like resting bitch face type shit. No offense, but you guys know what I'm saying. So Nick smiling, it's like a character change almost. You know, like I said, when I spoke to Nick, he was nothing but nice to me. He was nothing but nice to me. He's a cool guy, it seems like. There's just this, you know, weird situation that he's in. So I guess that's what I got to say about the smiling photo.
Molly and Sonny, when I got here, I would have been pretty frustrated. But they were, you know, they were happy, and Anika, Molly, and Sonny were, you know, they were a group of girls that were here, and they were kind of like they stuck together, and it made me feel like I was somewhere where, you know, I could keep my sanity. You know, when they were gone, I was kind of it was kind of a rough time. But then new people came, and you know, they kind of start to grow on you.
Yeah, you've been here a little longer than some people.
Yeah.
You've seen some people come and go.
My friend Sophion, he was here, and we became like, you know, pretty cool. You know, I kind of bumped heads with a few people. Like, we just didn't really get along, and I was like, you know, I didn't want to slap anybody around and be like this bully. So of course I wasn't. And yeah, I think me and Sophion got along pretty good. And then there was I do really good with Luis. He's funny. I love Igor. Igor was here, you know.
You and Igor are tight.
Yeah, me and Igor Sophion were pretty tight. I managed
Probably less than
through
48
the millions
hours.
of people and thousands of followers on like Facebook and Instagram. I managed to find people that I've ran into or that I've become acquaintance with, which is a miracle. But sometimes I do. Usually they find me, and then I find them somehow. But
I know those guys would tag along with you, man.
yeah,
When you get out of here,
Yeah.
they'll fucking swoop your ass up, and you guys go to get some coffee.
yeah. Let's open a new gym.
Maybe you guys will all open a new gym.
We'll call it Relapse.
Relapse, full of sober people. Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, anger management fight gym.
There you go.
Relapse fight
Not a bad
academy.
name.
Relapse Fight Academy is crazy.
Are you looking forward to moving out of here?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hitting the road. I got to get back on. I got to get back on a bike, and you know, back in the pool, and you know, I'm sure it'll be nice to like to get some new equipment and get back in the boxing ring.
I mean, is there anything that you want to say?
No, I just want to thank my fans, supporters, and everybody that you know is gonna be ready to tune in for my next upcoming fights, and we're gonna we're gonna win a world title.
Well, I look forward to that, and I'll definitely buy a pay-per-view for sure to see that. The point of this was just to let everybody know how you're doing and kind of get it out there that you're alive and well, and you know you've been out for a year, and you're back, and I'm super grateful and wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. I know you didn't have to. I know you're not getting paid a fucking penny to do it. It was kind of just to let people know where you're at, because people haven't seen you for a while, and you're moving on. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Thank Baja Rehab.
All right, so closing. Okay, well, actually, let's Let's read this, and then I'll give you guys my closing thoughts on the interview. It says, in the weeks leading up to this interview, Nick met Baja Rehab's clinical discharge criteria and was encouraged to continue his recovery in the United States. Despite external pressure for continued involuntary treatment, Baja Rehab determined that discharge planning and transfer were clinically and ethically appropriate. Baja Rehab facilitated Nick Diaz's transfer to a specialized recovery program in La Jolla, California, tailored to the demands of his fighting career. In Mexico, the treatment of substance use disorders is governed by federal health law, primarily NOM 028 SSA2 2009, and national regulations overseeing involuntary admission to specialized addiction treatment facilities administered by the Secretaría de Salud and COFEPRIS. Involuntary admission may be requested by a family member, legal guardian, or conservator when an individual is unable or unwilling to seek treatment voluntarily. Sounds like Nick, right? Such admission must be supported by a medical and clinical evaluation confirming the necessity of treatment. Involuntary treatment is permitted only under specific conditions, including when an individual poses a risk to themselves or others or lacks the capacity to make informed decisions regarding their care. Even in involuntary cases, patient rights remain protected. NOM 028 requires humane treatment, respect for dignity, communication rights, and ongoing clinical evaluation. Any restriction of liberty must be medically justified, documented, and subject to review. Involuntary treatment under Mexican law is not indefinite. Continued treatment must be clinically justified and regularly assessed. Once clinical discharge criteria are met, continued confinement and treatment cannot be legally or ethically justified. At that point, treatment must transition to a voluntary framework. Contrary to public speculation, Mexican law does not permit individuals to be confined in addiction treatment indefinitely. When discharge criteria are met, ethical and legal responsibility requires appropriate discharge planning, often including coordination with treatment providers in the patient's home country. When doing so is in the best interest of the client. So, Nick was more than ready to go. He couldn't be held there forever. A year is the max time. They were willing to keep him in Mexico. He was sober. He was cooperative. He was doing everything they asked of him. The next logical step was to discharge him to a sober living in the United States, right? And, it was Nick's choice. If he wanted to dip out of that bitch, that was his choice. But he was locked up in Mexican rehab for long enough. They thought it was ethical to let him go. I agree. I think it was the ethical decision. You can't control this guy and strip away his rights for life. It was a full 12 months, longer than 12 months. So, if anyone wants to know where I stand with Baja Rehab, letting Nick go, and, allowing him to make his own mistakes or improve his life, however he chooses to do it. But a full year was long enough. Unbroken says, is insurance covering this? No, the UFC covered it. The UFC covered it. Now, what do I think about, Nick Diaz and this whole thing? Well, here's my opinion, man. Like I said, Baja Rehab tried to facilitate these seminars for him to teach, right, and be a role model to the other addicts or patients in Baja Rehab, right? They wanted to use Nick almost as this leader figure because he is someone that people look up to, including myself, right? If I was around Nick in a martial arts setting, of course I would look up to him. I would feel like, damn, I got the guy who knows everything, right? Like, I look up to this dude, and I've looked up to him for a long time. That's why we're covering this right now. But what I'm getting to is Nick has a lot of good things to live for, but not only does he have a lot of good things to live for in training, in triathlons, in, maybe getting a fight going, I don't fucking know, but he has a lot of good things to live for because he can give, right? He can give to the world. He has a lot of good that he can offer the world through his martial arts experience, through his recovery experience as well, if he's, been able to maintain his sobriety. But he has a lot to live for, and he has a lot to offer, simply put. A lot to live for and a lot to offer. And I think Baja Rehab tried to reintroduce him into the role that he might want to play once he leaves rehab, which is take advantage of his life training, take advantage of his life's work, give back to the community, but also fall back in love with it for yourself and get back to training. So that's what I really think. I mean, I think that Nick has a lot of good to live for and he has a lot of good to offer. You know, a lot of people want to listen to Nick. A lot of people who find themselves in Nick's presence, right? As long as there's no drugs around, Nick is going to find himself being a leader 9 out of 10 times. As long as this ain't no druggy setting, right? If Nick walks into a fucking MMA gym, he's going to find himself being the leader 9 out of 10 times. If Nick is over in a bike shop somewhere picking up some parts to go on a bike ride, he's going to be a leader 9 out of 10 times. People look up to this dude. He's got crazy stats. He's got crazy accolades when it comes to triathlons, when it comes to fighting. So that's all I got to say, really. I mean, if people are in this dude's presence, he should take advantage of that and of the role he's in and deliver and be like, yeah, you know, I'm this guy who's achieved a lot of greatness in my life. Yeah, I had speed bumps, but I'm ready to take over a leadership, for lack of better word, role model role. You know, be a role model, bro. Why not? You've been through a lot in your life. I know fighters aren't role models, but shit, everything you've been through, Nick, I mean, maybe give it a try. You know, maybe give it a go. You know, try it out. See how you like it. Being a role model. But I'm telling you that a lot of people want to look up to you, homie. I was looking at the pictures of you sitting on the mat, you know, watching two guys roll. And best believe those two guys who you're watching roll, they love the fact that the legend Nick Diaz was right beside them teaching them shit. It pushed them harder. It pushed them harder probably to roll, right? Harder, no diddy. It pushed them to roll harder, no diddy, because you, the legend Nick Diaz, was sitting right next to them. They don't want to look like a bitch to you. To you, legend Nick Diaz. Okay? So that's all I gotta say. Nick's presence speaks volumes. And not only that, but if he wants to give some of his own personality, give some of himself to other people, on top of just his presence of just being there, all right, there is so much benefits he can give to other people that'll also come back to him, right? And then, like I said, I'll finish it how I started it. Get back to training, fall back in love with it for yourself. You got a lot to live for in that aspect too. Get back to the triathlons. Get back to physical fitness, right? Share your knowledge. That's what I got to say. Because, you know, I don't want to end it on like some old negative, like, oh, Nick's just delusional. Nick's just in denial. That's not how I want to end it. I had to call it out where it needed to be called out. But honestly, you know, I think there's a lot more positivity that we could spin off of this as well, which is what I just tried to do. And I mean all that from the bottom of my heart. So, you know, that's what I got to say about this Nick Diaz topic. That's what I got to say.